2, 1. Boom. Boom. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. Miss America. Here we are, streaming now. We've done it. We've done it. We're streaming away. I basically spent the last couple of days hanging out with my sister. It was real nice. My sister lives out on the East Coast. She was in town. Spending some time with her. That was very good. Eric, I feel like I haven't seen you in quite some time. Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. Doom to Bloom. Good to see you, too. Hope you guys are doing well. For those of you on YouTube, you can see I've got a Fire Information for Resource Management System map up. This is a map from NASA. There's been lots and lots of conversation about the wildfires in Canada that are raging, and the wildfires in Canada. But as you can see, if you take a look at the map here, every single little red dot is a fire. The Earth is on fire, if you haven't noticed it. The conversation, of course, surrounds, in Toronto, surrounds the whole idea of air quality, that it's impossible to not notice that the air, thinking about you in Canada this week with all the hazy smoke rolling through, thank you, grinning. The air quality is very obvious. It's impossible to ignore. I mean, people still do it, obviously. We have lots of conservatives around. We've got lots of people like Doug Ford, who is now on record saying that he refuses to link the wildfires to climate change. So we are led by a dangerous climate change denialist, an overt nightmare psychopath who will happily watch this province burn to the ground. Right? We'll happily watch the province burn to the ground. And the country and the world, frankly. Like, if you take a look at this map, and I strongly advise, for those of you who are on TikTok, you can go onto NASA's website, right? Try to find it's called FIRMS, the Fire Information for Resource Management System. And they will show you all of the fires that are ongoing on the planet right now. We have satellites in the sky, and unless you're a flat earther type, you understand what a satellite is, and you understand how it works. And you can see very clearly, like, wildfires are raging throughout Mexico, right, throughout Central America, Latin America, right? Huge wildfires going on right now in Brazil. Enormous fires happening in Africa. Enormous fires happening in Africa. I mean, I cannot overstate. The entire island of Madagascar appears to be on fire. Right? Like India is on fire. China is on fire. Australia is on fire. The places where it seems like there isn't that much fire are literally directly in the middle of the desert, although it looks as though there is a fire directly in the middle of the desert. One little red dot. That's fun. But like, very mountainous terrain, places like Spain seems to be doing okay. France is like okay. Most of these fires are probably in the cities anyway. Hey, protest joke. Protest joke. What do we... out of curiosity, says Eric, have you been following the debates between PP and JT? JT and PP. I've come across a lot of people claiming that JT is being influenced by China. Look, I am not a liberal and I am not a Justin Trudeau fan. I think that he is a walking haircut. I think that he reads cue cards primarily from the state, from the corporate state, from his owners, right? That he is not quote-unquote influenced by China in so much as he is quote-unquote aware that China exists and must be negotiated with. This is the insanity of the conservative position, okay? The conservatives are nightmare psychopaths. They have lost the narrative. They're not interested in governing. They're not interested in connecting rationally with the world around them. Many of them deny climate change. Many of them think angels are real. China exists. Did you know? There's a place in the world, you can find it on a map, called China, where there's 1.4 billion people. They're an ascending country. They're making a lot of money for themselves. They're doing very well. They're rapidly growing. Wages are growing, doubling almost year over year. And the reality is that they're a country that needs to actually be dealt with, and that they're also a country that is interested in dealing with the rest of the world. They're interested in trade. They're interested in negotiation. They're interested in diplomacy. And did you know that Justin Trudeau is the leader of our country? Did you know that? That so if you've got a country in the world like China that's interested in things like negotiation and diplomacy, right? And you have the leader of your country who should also be interested in negotiation and diplomacy, then these two forces are going to align. Click, and that's going to happen. But every single time any kind of event occurs, or there's any kind of transfer of any kind of wealth or money or exchange of any sort, our media loses its mind, because the country's generally turning towards fascism and is interested in getting rid of these liberals, sort of break the whole thing open and just let the fascists run the show. That's more or less the trajectory of what's going on. Every single time I see anybody or any kind of piece of news or any kind of connection whatsoever, I look into it, and it's essentially just hysteria. It's essentially just like a hysterical, like foaming at the mouth, raving crazy, can you believe that China exists? That's essentially the level of it. So a real good, a clear example of that people will literally mock me in the comment sections for saying this, but it's like it's so childishly true that it's embarrassing it needs to be said. Beijing gave the Trudeau Foundation $200,000, and it's like, who cares? Like, so what? $200,000 is such an insignificant sum of money. It's the international politics level of like sending someone a rose. Like, it sounds like a lot of money to you because you make like $40,000 a year or $30,000 a year. Like, it sounds like, oh my God, that's so much money. But in terms of international politics, in terms of corporate politics, it's literally just like blowing a kiss. It's basically nothing. And yet people are losing their minds about it. Because we have lost our minds. Like, we have lost our minds as a people. We're not actually interested or capable of having reasonable, rational discussions. We're not interested in hearing anything that has anything to do with anything even remotely reasonable. We are in a period of heightened hysteria. And hysteria is the word to use, where every little tiny slight or every little perceived negative thing is blown up into the most absurdist, ridiculous place. The conspiracy brain that exists today is way worse than it has ever been. Way, way, way worse. Like, what's going on today makes like 9/11 trutherism and even flat eartherism look like baby's first conspiracy theory. Like we're getting into like, you've got COVID conspiracies going all around. You've got one world government stuff is taking over, and a big part of the reason why this is all happening is that the country itself is tilting to the extreme far right. And so as we march towards the far right, we just have unhinged. We've completely unhinged. There's a great play called Rhinoceros by a playwright by the name of Ionesco. And he writes about the experience of the character is in a world where everyone around him is steadily becoming a rhinoceros. And of course, it's an allegory for living in a country that becomes fascist. And stuff like this, where we're seeing regular, normal people suddenly begin claiming that Justin Trudeau is being influenced by China, and oh my God, can you believe that he actually talked to a Chinese citizen, and can you believe that China sends money to organizations in order for diplomatic purposes, and can you imagine that Chinese citizens would actually be interested in sending their grandmother money? Like, can you believe it? Like, we're losing our minds. Like, we're losing our minds. And as the climate change hysteria ramps up, as the consequences of it ramps up, as the wealth inequality issue ramps up, as inflation ramps up, as rents ramp up, like, we're gonna lose our minds. And we're gonna do very dumb stuff very fast. Yep. Midnight Rose, good to see you, by the way. New York literally looks like it has Middle East filter from 2008 American propaganda movies. Yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry. Just get back to work. Yeah, everything is sepia tone now. Right? Everything is sepia tone. I'm wondering if the claim is even remotely true. But, Eric, here's my point. Is that it doesn't matter if the claim is true. Right? Like, if the claim is true, it's such a nothing burger. Like, this is more or less my point, is that it's a hysteria. And so even if it's true, like, if you take their claim, here's the claim, this is what happened, and you look at it, you go, okay, like, that just means that Justin Trudeau is in international politics. Like, that's all it is. And people are losing their minds about it. It's wild. I'm not confident that JT is a stable person, to be honest. Oh, you said JT. I thought you meant JP. Little column A, little column B. Complaining that we have more wealth than you when we worked 20 times harder than you. That's hilarious, Will. Like, this is kind of the hysteria that I'm talking about and the delusion that I'm talking about. Like, you have to be an extraordinary delusional person to think this way. And it's very difficult to believe, like, it's very difficult to have serious conversations. How do you have serious conversations with people who are this deluded and just that detached from reality? That, yeah, it's that I worked harder. That's what it is. It's 100% that I worked harder. Like, and what's so funny about those sorts of comments is that, well, so what if you did? That doesn't justify homelessness. That doesn't justify the disparity that you see. That doesn't justify any of that kind of stuff. Probably not, Chuck. Like, probably not. Like, I hate to break it to you, dude. I don't take these comments particularly seriously. Adam Smith, the stalwart gentleman, is in our chat. Have you read the economic and philosophic manuscripts of 1844? Like, have I read Adam Smith's writings? Yes. That I'm a victim mentality is the typical neurosis of capitalists, to be honest. Yeah, Eric says, your analysis is essentially the same as me. I even decided to dig into donations to political parties. Get this conservative, abolish a money donation law so that a person can donate even more money to the party. And of course they receive something like 65 million in donation. Yeah. Like they are interested in getting rid of here in Canada we have donation caps still, and they want them to be gone. Like, they want them to be gone. You see how successful getting rid of donation caps has been in the United States. It's been very successful for the corporate power structure. They're getting exactly what they want. They don't care that it's fascists that are getting into power. Like, it doesn't matter to people like Elon Musk. It doesn't matter to people like Bill Gates if the people who come into power are overt, crazed, like, narcissistic fascists. They do what they're told, and they do what the power structure wants of them, which is to make them richer. That's it. And they don't care if they're also, like, doing a transgenocide. They don't care if they're erecting Jim Crow laws in Mississippi. Like, they don't care. None of that matters if you're somebody like Elon Musk, right? Whose daddy was an apartheid billionaire. Like, it's pretty straightforward shit as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, China is clearly lighting the fires. China, man, bad. Yeah. Capitalists don't work for a living. They own things for a living, yeah, and we feed them anyway. Yeah, that's the other part that's so hilarious. Like, like, communists and socialists will stand up and be like, hey, has anybody noticed that there's this class of capitalists who do no work whatsoever? And then the response is, I worked hard for my money. It's like literally not what we're talking about. Like literally not what we're talking about. We are talking about the class of people who exist in the society who don't work. Like people like David Thompson don't work. Like the idea that he does is so asinine and absurd. Like I love pointing at David Thompson because David Thompson is like quintessentially, fundamentally a problem. And to not understand that is weird in my perspective. Here is a guy whose wealth is essentially distributed throughout the Canadian economy. He doesn't own like a business. He just owns like a slice of all businesses. So as long as the Canadian economy goes up at all, so too will his wealth, because he essentially owns a percentage of the Canadian economy. And why does he own a percentage of the Canadian economy? Because he was born that way. Because he was born with it. And then you have just people who come in and just say like, oh, I worked hard. Who cares? Like literally not what's being discussed. You're just falling for this ridiculous trap of capitalists pitting workers against each other. Like that's what's happening. That it's like that internet meme where there's a guy with a pile of cookies, and then there's a worker in a hard hat with one cookie, and there's a poor guy with no cookie, and the rich guy with all the cookies is saying that poor guy wants to steal your cookie, and you're just falling for it. Like it's such an obvious grift at this point. It's so obvious that I'm just astounded people still fall for this. Like, I'm still astounded that people fall for this. No, Adam Smith says, no, that's Marx works. Yes, I've read the works of Karl Marx. I mean, I have done it through audiobook, because, boy howdy, is that a slog. Like, and there is a, what is his name? David something or other. Why am I blanking on that guy's name right now? That's a terrible time to blank on this guy's name. There is a Marxist teacher, professor, who has a lot of his lectures on YouTube that I really strongly suggest going through his stuff, because not like Marx is verbose and technical and very specific, and David Harvey, yeah, very good, and and so I highly suggest people take a look at David Harvey. Yeah. Still with the Ronnie McNutt stuff. Good to see the bots are working. Crazy how y'all say the rich are just privileged. Yeah, Will, I'm sorry, man. Like, you gotta come down from this detached delusion, okay? Elon Musk was born a billionaire. Elon Musk was born a billionaire. If you want to talk about the gulags, man, you should talk about the American prison system. The American prison system currently has 25% of the world's prison population. Like, this whole gulag thing is obvious deflection and a form of gaslighting, as far as I'm concerned. Take a look at the privatized American prison system that holds 25% of the world's prison population before you open your mouth and talk about gulags. Like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, there were prisons where they put Nazis. Yeah, the Nazis went somewhere when they got captured, for sure. Do communists think we should share unnecessary items such as gold? I don't think there's a blanket statement to this. More of the Ronnie McNutt. I wouldn't call myself a Putin fan, but I certainly don't hold the Western pro-NATO line on Putin. Like, if you've got Nazis bombing your own citizens or bombing ethnic Russians on your border, you've got to do something about it. Gulags held the most prison population in their day. Sure, yeah, like Nazis, right? Like, this is my favorite thing, that the people who are like gulags, as if there wasn't a war on. Right? As if there weren't like spies, as if there weren't Tsarists, as if there weren't people who were actually trying to tear apart the revolution internally, right? It just seems as though we're just supposed to forget about the existence of Nazis. Yeah, those don't exist. No such thing, right? No such thing. Yeah. Fun fact: I'm currently rereading Das Kapital with David Harvey and trying to do volume 1, 2, 3 by the end of the year. That's very aggressive. That's aggressive, dude. Good for you. Yeah, I know. Boohoo, poor Nazis. Eh? Looking to see those poor Nazis. We're all supposed to really care about the Nazis. Do I like Justin Trudeau? No. Justin Trudeau is a walking haircut that reads cue cards given to him by the corporate state. And did I read Lenin's work and Trotsky? I haven't read all of Lenin's work, obviously, but The State and Revolution, What is to be Done, right? And Trotsky's work, like What is Fascism? Good evening. Hi, John. Right-wingers are saying fires are a conspiracy theory and not climate change. Yeah, that's my favorite. Like, this is, like, how can anyone talk or compromise with these fascists? Yeah. Like, they're not acknowledging the most basic shit. Like, why would you even say these fires are a conspiracy theory? Like, what are you talking about? Like, then who's setting them? Like, where are these fires coming from? Right? Like, what's the my favorite part about the climate change is a conspiracy theory thing is like, what in the name of all, like, who benefits from this? Who's the beneficiary? Like, this is what's so great when you get into all this, like, flat earther stuff and all this climate change denialist stuff. It's like, who is the beneficiary of this? Who's the person, who is sitting there going, yes, and then we'll convince the population that CO2 emissions are rising, and that then we'll have to transition prematurely off of fossil fuels, or everyone will suffer. And then when, like, the actual natural consequences of CO2 emissions rising occurs, everybody goes, no, that's just that group pretending as though the thing that they've been saying is, and like, for why? For why? Why would anyone actually do this? And the only answer anybody has is for power. They already have all the power. Like, what are you talking about for power? The fossil fuel industry and the corporate power structure and the American imperial machine and military industrial complex, they already have all the power. What possible reason could anyone actually have to actually put forward a narrative that climate change is fake and we're all just bullshitting ourselves, right? And when you actually listen, like, there's a real psychopath who keeps coming up on my feed and who I keep seeing by the name of Dan Penna. This guy's a crazed lunatic, very openly a psychopath, who obviously would sacrifice his own children for money. And you listen to this guy, and this is like, he coaches billionaires. Of course he does. He's a psychopath, right? And you listen to the reason why he doesn't care about climate change, and the reason he doesn't care about climate change is because the banks don't care about climate change. Of course, he completely omits that the banks don't care about climate change because they're not the ones that are going to foot the bill. You are, which is always the story. Right? I wouldn't give a shit about climate change if I was a bank, right? I'm not going to foot the bill. I'm going to get bailed out, just like all of the collapsing banks recently have been bailed out. Right? I'm not the one. I'm never going to foot that bill. Right? You are. So, and of course, guys like Dan Penna want to convince you to keep investing in him and keep giving him money. Right? So we're just in this period of time where we just cannot have serious conversations anymore. Yeah, it's hard to talk about climate change when there's 7 billion people to civilize. Yeah, like it's that's a really interesting comment because it is the truth. Like, we are not a civilized people. Like, if a civilized people would never permit this to happen. A civilized people would actually say, "Oh, there are rules. Like, there are rules. Like, there are boundaries to what we can do." And we have to work within those boundaries. And if we don't work within those boundaries, there are consequences. But of course, we don't care about even our own children. So I don't understand why we should be surprised about any of this. Eric says, keep in mind the Gulag system was something that they inherited from the Tsar system. Stalin made reforms, which includes free healthcare. On top of that, the guy who made the novel about the Gulag did receive a heart treatment in the Gulag somewhere. He would have died if the communist revolution had never occurred. Yeah, that's the great irony, right? Of you're talking about the Gulag archipelago. a work of historical fiction, which is why capitalists use it, because capitalists don't like primary sources. They prefer using fantasy novels. Capitalists love America's judicial system because it's crushing the others that capitalists hate. Yeah, like it's very clearly just a transition into a type of neo-slavery. That sure, they abolished chattel slavery, but they maintained the system of wage slavery. But it wasn't enough to have a system of wage slavery. They wanted a new type of chattel slavery, and so they've invented this like prison slavery. Basically, they've invented this system of privatized prison slavery, where they can literally just like go round people up on the streets. Matt Taibbi wrote a really great book called The Great Divide that goes into this very clearly. That cops will just round people up and just send them into, just charge them with things, and if you can't pay, you go to jail, right? So you get hit with these trumped up charges, and then you have to go to a court date. If you skip the court date, then you're considered in violation. Like the whole goal is to just nail you with bullshit until you're in jail. Midnight Rose, we can point to any country and point out things. Pogroms against Jews in Tsarist Russia, Baltic states helping the Nazis kill Jews, the U.S. prison system continuing slavery, so on and so forth. Yeah, that guy, good to see you, bud. They are saying the government is setting them on purpose in Canada and elsewhere. It's trending on social media. Why? Like, why would they do this? What's the win? Where's the W? Right? Like, what for what purpose? To what end? To achieve what goal? It's my favorite part about this. Like, like, I kind of have, like, a bit of sympathy for conspiracy people. Because when I was younger, I was very into conspiracy myself. Like, I was into the 9/11 Truther movement. I was into this kind of stuff. And once you start asking yourself who benefits, once you start actually asking that question seriously, you really realize how dumb a lot of this stuff is, right? Like, it doesn't benefit anybody to do this. It doesn't benefit the government. It doesn't benefit corporations. It doesn't benefit anybody to purposefully set wildfires in order to manufacture a narrative about climate change so that they what? Take your freedoms? They've already got your freedoms. Like, this is the dumbest shit of life. The idea that, like, they're doing it to secure their power, to erect a tyranny, and, like, they've already done that. That already exists, right? It just doesn't matter to you, right? Like, you're so detached from what's going on in the entire rest of the world that you need to manufacture weird fake narratives about what's going on in the world to kind of make sense of what's actually happening, as opposed to just joining the entire rest of the planet in saying that the institutional power structures in North America are inherently corrupt, the capitalist system is inherently destructive and does inherently destroy itself. It enslaves everything around it. It's all it's ever done. It's not doing anything else. And instead of saying that, you got like libertarians on the far right being like, we just got to get rid of the government. If we get rid of the government, then everything will be great once we're ruled directly by corporate power. Once Elon Musk is my direct owner, and there is no structure by which I can formally protest him, then things will be better, right? Like, this is the libertarian position. That what we need to do is eliminate the ways to actually do formal negotiations and formal and attempt to formally reform the society, and instead just sell yourself to the wealthiest billionaire. It's brutal. Yes, it does. They will have total control of us. They already have that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? They already have that. Like, they don't need to manufacture this narrative. Like, this is the part of the whole thing that's crazy. They don't need this narrative. This narrative is very inconvenient for them. It's very problematic for them. It's very, very why on God's green earth? Why would in God's green earth, would any organization, would any country, would any company, would anybody try to make a problem for themselves on this scale? Like, Why would they be doing this? It's the most like it's the most absurdist shit of life. Like if this is what they're doing, like if this is actually what they're doing, going around starting wildfires on purpose in order to justify a climate change, then we're not dealing with just psychopaths. We're dealing with literal demons. We're dealing with like people who are literally like Lucifer is real. He right now he's coming out of the wildfires of Africa, right? He's in the middle of a torrential storm throwing fireballs. He's got 6 heads like a fucking Legend of Zelda character. Like that's what we are talking about. If this is the pitch that you are making, it's not just that like we're not just dealing with psychopathy. We're dealing with literal supernatural phenomenon at this point. That there are hell gates opening, vampire legions coming through. Like the scale of what you are talking about is so absurd. And the best part about it is that the scale of what you are talking about is so absurd that there would so obviously there would be there would be evidence of it. like that there would be evidence of this. That someone would discuss it. We would know about it. There would be whistleblowers. There would be like the government is actively and it's not just our government. It's every government. It's China, India, Africa, Brazil, Russia, Australia, Mexico, Canada, all of them simultaneously working together. They can't seem to work together to do things like don't kill one another, but they can certainly work together on this, I guess, to con the people of Canada and the rest of the world into believing that climate change is real so that they can get a thing they already have. Like that's the punchline. Like the punchline is we're going to do all of this absolutely insane thing to get something they already have. Like they've already got the power. Like what are you talking about? They don't need to do this. Like they don't need to do any of this. And what power structure would ever want to deal with this? What power structure would ever want to deal with this? Have you heard of the Ring of Fire BS with Ford? All I know about Ford is that he's basically just denying. I haven't heard the exact phrase Ring of Fire. Like, Ford said he has been told by 50% of fires were caused by lightning strikes, while the other 50% are started by campfires. That's all it is, guys. Lightning strikes and campfires. Got to take personal responsibility, everybody. Make sure you don't... so I'm begging you, people. Put out your campfires. Put out your campfires. That's 100% what's causing this, right? Forget about, like, the whole idea that, like, the conditions of climate change have made it so that a lightning strike is worse, right? Forget about that narrative. Like, it's so fucking wild watching the human species eradicate itself like this on purpose. Like, and it is on purpose at this point. Like, it looks pretty clearly to me that we're gonna do it with a lot of hysteria. There's just gonna be a ton of hysteria. We're not gonna try to be anything but hysteria. It's like when you go on a roller coaster, right? Everybody knows that you're safe on a roller coaster. That's why I don't really go on roller coasters. Because I go on a roller coaster and I'm just kind of sitting there and we're moving very quickly. And all I can do is kind of like watch the roller coaster and be like, okay, interesting choices, right? And everybody around me is going like, woo! And at the end of it, like, people will look at me and be like, why didn't you get into it? And I'm like, well, like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you gotta like get into it. You gotta like, you have permission to throw your hands up and act like a crazy person on a roller coaster. And I've done that occasionally, and it's like, there's a type of fun to it. It's not my bag. I don't care about roller coasters. I don't care about doing this thing. But it seems to me like that's more or less what's happening in the society. That everybody is like, oh, Donald Trump got elected. I have permission to be a lunatic now. So I'm going to act like a total lunatic. Right? And everybody's just acting like a total lunatic. And as things go along, there's going to be breaking points. That people are eventually just going to be like, oh, we can all just act like lunatics. Let's just act like lunatics. Absolutely. We don't need to use reason or thought. We don't need to have reasonable conversations. We don't even need to say reasonable things. We can just say the most irrational, crazed, lunatic stuff you've ever heard in your life, and who's going to say no? And even if they do say no, we can just go, Putin apologist, and walk away. Right? It's the perfect situation for just being a nut. Right now is a great time to just be a total lunatic. Right? And it looks to me like the people who are doing that are having a great time. They're having an absolute great time. I mean, like, why in God's green earth would any government ever want to deal with COVID? Like, it just seems to me like if I'm a guy like Doug Ford or Justin Trudeau, I literally just want to go to brunch. That's all I want to do. I want to sip tea, go to brunch, and have like a weird conversation with the guy across the aisle. None of these guys are equipped or interested in dealing with these crises. They're not interested in it, right? Which is why they can't, because they don't know how, right? They don't know how, and all of them know what the solutions are. Like, the solutions are really obvious, right? We've got a bunch of people sleeping in the streets in a bunch of empty apartments. Man, prices are going through the roof, and billionaires are making more money than they've ever made before. Right? But they don't want to deal with that, and so they're not. Just pretty straightforward. They're just not going to deal with it. Bugatti boy, good to see you, bud. That's such a great name, dude. Bugatti boy. That's so funny. I'm surprised people even wake up and go to work and act like everything is normal. Yeah, everybody's got rent to pay, bud. There's rent. Like, what humans are going to be left in Canada in the world in 5 years? Yeah. It's like the narrative that someone is blowing up farms for some sort of grand goal. Like, literally, what is the purpose? Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think that the most damning part about sort of the conspiracy side of it is that, like, when you get these sort of large-scale plots and plans and ideas and thoughts, someone just donated $10, Jay Pringle. I appreciate it, bud. Thank you so much, Jay Pringle. That's very kind of you. Thank you, bud. I value and appreciate you. Like, it's very nice, Jay Pringle. Thank you, bud. When big organizations do this kind of stuff, it's not a secret. Like, that's the most damning part about it. And this is the thing that I'm really going to try to infuse into the society as much as possible. I'm trying to get this across more than anything else to the conspiracy people. If you are a person who falls into this conspiracy stuff, right? And don't get me wrong, conspiracies are fun and great. And sometimes conspiracies do manifest into reality, okay? But you know how conspiracies manifest into reality? It's because when big, gigantic organizations conspire against the public and manifest those conspiracies into the reality against the public, they don't do it secretly. And so you can see it. You can watch it happen. And you can say, oh, hey, here's a document from that group of people who said the thing that that happened, right? Because to enact these sort of giant scale policies requires an enormous amount of planning. It requires an enormous amount of planning. You can't just do this, right? Even if you have $100 billion, even if you are like Elon Musk, right? Even if you are a guy who's just like, we're gonna do some shadow government underhand, like you have to talk. You have to. It's just not possible to organize this stuff through like brain waves. We're gonna connect to the neural link and I'll communicate what I need you to do through the neural link. Like, there's always policy, there's always plan, there's always organization. And so the burden of proof is on the conspiracy guys to be like, show me that this is actually happening on purpose. Because you would see major documents from the State Department, major documents from the federal government, probably CIA, CSIS, right? You'd likely have leaks. Like people aren't just going to be like, I work for the CIA and I'm supposed to start wildfires. That's a normal thing. Yeah, completely normal, right? Yeah, the average people must unite. Yeah, that is what it is. But like the state is very effective at crushing dissent. It's very effective at it, especially as we march towards fascism. And it'll get more overt. It'll get more overt about it. I was just talking to somebody today who pointed out like the convoy movement that happened in Canada was tolerated for a moment. A similar thing started to happen in the United States, and the police just went in and shut it down. They literally were just like, hey, you guys got a bunch of trucks here? Get out of here. And it was as simple as that. So the United States isn't going to allow formal protest. It's not going to allow that kind of thing to happen. Because that's not how the United States rolls. Like, they're going to go through and they're going to clear it out very quickly. Yeah, how do people read the news and do anything? I think a big thing that's going on these days is that most people are in a state of hysteria. Like, just because you're not running around screaming doesn't mean you're not in a state of hysteria. That fight or flight exists, that there is a fight or flight impulse that exists inside of each and every one of us, and most of us are triggered into that most of the time. That we are just fighting and flying. That's all. And so you read the news, and that might go into like your mental space, but like, you know, you got bills to pay, you got shit to do. You exist in many levels. Like, you exist, your awareness exists in many levels. And probably the most important level is, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I eating? Right? And most people, right, in the immediate sense, in the immediate right of the now, probably do feel safe. Right? Like, sure, there are fires, but they are over there. Right? I am safe. And so as long as you exist in that kind of space, then you just kind of go about your regular life. Because to do otherwise is much more difficult. Much more difficult. Yeah, we can't take care of our own citizens, but we can work together to set each other on fire or lie about it for power, yeah? Blame anything but capitalism. That's the other thing the conspiracy guys are doing, right? Blame anything but capitalism. Yeah, the fires were started on purpose. Source required, Stacy's mom. Like, source required. I'm not just going to believe that, okay? Like, where's your source? Where's the group of people responsible for starting those fires? Like, there's no way that would happen. You have video. You've got video evidence of people confessing to starting fires. Like, it just seems pretty unlikely. Seems pretty unlikely, if you ask me. Fiddleford's catalog, good to see you, bud. They are planting a lithium mine north of Superior. The communities don't like it. Yeah, I suspect not. Zeus and Joe Camper need to own up to their mayhem? Huh. If lightning strikes and campfires could start forest fires this easily, we'd no longer have forests. Yeah. Tinker, hashtag let's go Skynet. Humans don't deserve this Earth. Skynet is the only hope for saving Earth. The Earth will be fine. The Earth will be fine. Like, this is all surface stuff, right? Like, that's something to really always remember. Like, all of the stuff that's happening is just affecting us. That we live on the surface, right? We're very, like, if you actually accept what the Earth is and the density of it and the size of it, we're not that important. Right? Like, we've kind of taken over the surface world of it, but like we don't have control of the systems. We don't have control of what's going on the planet. Like, the Earth will be fine, and the Earth is launching its defense mechanism against us, as it should, because we're not doing anything to help ourselves, and certainly not to help it. And we're going to pay heavy costs and heavy consequences. If you guys are wondering, like, there are people who are asking to invite to join live. The reason why I don't just let random people in here is because I end up talking to lots of Nazis, and so I don't care to. Right? If you want to ask questions, if you want to be more direct, like if you want to have a more direct conversation with me, You can go into the description. There's a YouTube link there. It'll get you to my YouTube channel. You can talk to me directly. I like talking to people on the YouTube because, you get a lot of this kind of stuff, right? Like this, like this right here, right? Debate liberals can never do. Liberals hate facts. I agree. Yeah. Let me guess. NDP. I mean, desperate times. So please, if you'd like to actually have a genuine conversation with me, YouTube's the way to do it. I like kind of TikTok, and every so often, yeah. Now all of a sudden nobody voted for Trudy, but I get a lot of Nazis here. And I don't care to talk to Nazis. If you are a Nazi, I hope something bad happens to you. Scientists were gluing themselves to buildings a few months ago, yeah. We're witnessing one of the great filters. This one's from Midnight Rose. We're witnessing one of the great filters that relates to the Fermi paradox and the Kardashev scale. We won't pass it without socialism. The great filter will make us go extinct if we don't. All hail the great filter. That's there's a lot of stuff to unpack in that. There's a lot of I'd actually love it if you could. Mr. Moon says bears are total communists. Fantastic. Said Compton, good to see you, but Compton, you're late, my man. You're late. Santora, I saw that you're a Patreon now. Thank you so much for donating. I appreciate it, dude. I'm going to send you a message. I've just been a busy beaver. I'm going to send you a message, get you into the Discord, okay, bud? Thank you. Dude, Compton, what? Every time you're in here, my man. I'm worried about you, dude. Like, I am. Like, if I was a soothsayer, if I was somebody who was like reading the stars or your alignment chart or something, I would be like, I think something as bad is going to happen to you, dude. And I'm worried for you. Like, you're telling me some jackass busted out the back window of your car? Like, it's spiraling closer, isn't it? Like, it seems to be spiraling closer. It's like there's a invisible, like, goblin in your life that's, like, steadily, like, tromping closer to you. I'm worried about you, dude. Like, for real. I hope things are, I hope things plane out, man. I hope that bounces the other direction. Ugh. Yep, China's planning to build a base in Cuba. Yeah, I've seen reports on that. I mean, tit for tat, if you ask me. Like, if you go over to the South China Seas, like, America builds military bases all throughout. Like, Japan is basically a military base for America. South Korea, you've got the Philippines, right, the Indonesian islands. For God's sakes, Hong Kong for a while was, like, literally a military base. Like... And so China comes over and is just like, oh, we could do that. We could, like, put one in Cuba. Sort of tit for tat, frankly. Yeah, fully automated luxury gay space communism. Damn straight. Yeah, left-wing conspiracies are just declassified CIA operations. Yeah. No, I know all about fully automated luxury gay space communism. Absolutely. Like, this is the part about this whole thing that's so bonkers to me. Like things could be better than this. Things could be easier than this. Like, we don't need to be doing any of this shit. We don't need to be operating this way. We don't need capital ownership. We don't need this class of worthless parasites who have no imagination or vision for how the future is supposed to look. Dictating how things are supposed to go, because their ideas are stupid and bad. Like, they're dumb, bad, stupid people, and their ideas are dumb, and their ideas are stupid. And, like, they exist. Like, if you listen to the ideas of Elon Musk with even an iota of skepticism, if you stop looking at him with this, like, oh wow, Daddy Elon will get us to Mars, and you actually think about it for, like, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, you really recognize, like, oh, these are dumb ideas. Like, these are not good ideas. Like, there are so many better things. Like, they tend to, like, trigger something in our creative, like, Star Wars brain or Star Trek brain where we're like, oh, wow, the future, Neuralink, oh. But, like, when you actually pause and think about them for any amount of time whatsoever, especially with, like, through the lens of capital ownership, you really realize pretty quickly, like, Neuralink is a terrible idea. It is a terrible idea. Anybody, and it's so wild watching, it's the same group of people who are like, the government is setting wildfires on purpose. I can't wait for Daddy Elon to put a chip in my brain. Like, it's the same people. Like, that for some reason, if it's a government organization that we all vote for, it's a big problem. But if it's an apartheid emerald mine baby, we're all just like, he's the greatest, most intelligent man who's ever walked the plane of reality. I'm telling you guys, and I say it. I'm saying it basically once an episode now, once an episode now, so that all of the evidence will be in place when the documentation finally comes out. I think the CIA is hypnotizing us with these phones. I think that there are apps and things where, like, there's like a specific sequence of like that's literally just making people go like, Elon is so smart. Elon is so smart. Because he's obviously not. Like, he's so obviously not. Just listen to him talk for 30 minutes. And, like, turn off your, like, Elon's the greatest because he's a billionaire. He's so smart and intelligent. Oh, he's going to get us to Mars. Just, like, turn that off for a minute. Like, and listen to this guy. Actually, and the one I keep directing people to, listen to him talk to Joe Rogan. And, like, Joe Rogan goes, that's the way Joe Rogan talks the whole time. What you say? Like he's talking to, like, a super god or something, right? But if you just, like, instead of that, you just take more of a, like, really? Like, this is the tone that you take in your brain? I don't know, a little bit more of that. Then suddenly Elon Musk sounds exactly what he is, which is a stupid idiot. He is an unintelligent person. He just has a lot of money. And my favorite thing is that the phony way that he actually talks, right? Like, he gets into these interviews and he talks like he's a special boy. And he talks like this. Like I'm an intelligent person. Well, you know the thing about I'm going to... And then you listen to him just, like, shoot the shit with some people. It's like, he doesn't talk like that. He's so obviously just, like, phony the entire time. And everybody just seems to be like, oh, yeah, apartheid emerald mine baby is the greatest. I love being ruled by an apartheid emerald mine baby. Yeah, the NED and Ayn Rand Corporation are perfect examples of institutions who talked openly their plan for countries. Like, what happened to the WEF? All of a sudden, nobody's talking about the WEF. Remember, like, a couple of months ago, everybody was like, the World Economic Forum owns everything. And the World Economic Forum, some of the shit that they say out loud is, like, straight up Nazi eugenics. Like, straight up just, like, Nazi eugenics. So the plan for the future. The plan for the future is that we are going to take monkey brains. We will take the monkey brains and we will take out the human brain and replace the human brain with the monkey brain. And then we will put electronics in the monkey brain, and that will mean that the human worker will become 0.3% more efficient. Like, this is the shit that they're not like, we're going to implant a chip inside of a person so that if they stop looking at their work for 2 seconds, it shocks them. Like, this is the type of shit that they're talking about at the WEF. And I'm supposed to believe that, like, governments are like, we're gonna secretly start wildfires all around the world and no one will know about it, so that everyone will come to believe climate change. And once everyone believes that climate change is real, we'll have to spend a bunch of money, lose all of our power and authority in order to transition into a greener economy. And then we'll have the power we already had to give away. Like, this is what we're talking about. This is the thing that they're saying. Oh man, the whole, like, climate change is a conspiracy theory. It like doesn't make any sense at all. The more you think about it, the dumber it gets. Like we the corporate power structure and the government already have all the power. So we're going to create a narrative in which the only solution to that narrative is for us to give up our power. It doesn't make any sense. Why would they ever do this? Right? And it's completely predicated on the idea that they want to openly terrorize you in order to get you into a place of fear, when the reality is that every single state and every single corporate power structure just wants you to be kind of dopey. That's where they actually want you. Where they actually want you is to be looking at your dumb phone going, ho, 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 like eating burgers. They want you to like have a fat, dumb, greasy piece of shit going, and then when they put you in front of a screen and they say, okay, when the bell goes, you got to hit the button. And you just sit there going, and then the bell goes, ding, and you go click. And that's it. That's all they want from you. That's all they want from you. And so the idea that they're going to erect an entire narrative, they're going to erect a false narrative in order to terrorize you, which has this enormous backfire and blowback potential to it, it just doesn't make any goddamn sense. Can you imagine being in the room? Can you imagine sitting in the room with a group of guys as they were talking about doing this? Like, I would stand up and be like, but they're all fat and dopey already. Like, they're already fat, complacent, dopey, and stupid already. Why? For what possible reason do we have to do this? When we could literally just keep shoving grease into their face, shoving candy into their maw, and just let them press the dumb button when we tell them to. Like, what possible rational reason could you actually have for wanting to move forward with this? And the answer is just, because we're evil. Because we want to terrorize them and eat their babies. The babies are more delicious when they're afraid. Baby eating is the best. Yes, the scared babies are the most delicious. Like, nah. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. The climate change narrative creates way more problems for them. So many more problems than its existence would solve. Right? Like, they don't want it. They're not interested in dealing with it. They don't want to look at it. and the idea that they're all doing it all at once as well. That every state and every nation and every country and every corporation all simultaneously together are manufacturing this. Like, no. Like, no. Maybe it's a natural phenomenon. Maybe it's a natural phenomenon that's linked to an activity that we as humans are all actually collectively doing, which is polluting, right? We are all actually collectively polluting together as a species. It's something we've achieved as a people. We're together on this. We're collectively polluting. Collectively polluting. Collectively polluting. Unity through pollution. Pollution brings peace. Right? Like, that's what we're actually doing. We're just shitting. We're just shitting everywhere. Like, humanity is just eating these dumb burgers, looking at their stupid phone. And the earth is finally just being like, okay, I'm tired of this. That's enough. That's quite enough of this. That's quite enough of this. Yeah. We were supposed to take a family trip to Wonderland tomorrow, but the CIA busted in and fucked with the air quality. That's right. Thanks a lot, CIA. The Great Reset is trying to put stakeholder capitalism in place, which is essentially a merger of corporation and government. This merger has already happened. So the whole Great Reset narrative, like, I agree with it, like the WEF narrative of the Great Reset and all that is, but like, that's already happened. So they don't need this shit. Like, it's just, this is a major inconvenience. Like, the climate change narrative is a major inconvenience for them. They super don't want to deal with it. Oh, there's a new guy in here. ZC. Also Mason. Yeah, Mason Sola. The CIA is always hating things? Yeah. Omnicidal tendencies. Good to see you guys. I got to catch up with the chat. I went on a big thing. Because, man, like, I just find this one in particular is really... Well, and another reason why I think it's so important to really confront this one is that it's more dangerous than others. Like, who cares if the moon landing was faked? Like, who cares? It's the most irrelevant shit of life. But, like, to try to convince people that climate change is not real because the government is the one responsible for it. Oh, okay, you're not a rational person, so bye. ZC, I work a full-time job, so you're basically just speaking from a place of total ignorance. We don't need to tolerate a worship of ignorance, okay? Like, worshiping ignorance is one of the major downfalls of the Western civilization, right? The first one is the worship of money, the second one is the worship of the self, and the third one is the worship of ignorance. And coming in and just accusing someone of being a welfare bum is like the most ignorant shit a person can do. You don't know anything about me. You don't even know my name. I work a full-time job. Right, I'm actually planning on going back to school. Like, it's just the most the idea that you think it's a good idea to confront people with your ignorance this way, and that you think your ignorance is going to somehow be persuasive, is startling. It's startling that you worship your own ignorance that way. So keep it to yourself, bud. Biden admin has permitted more oil and gas drills than Orange Blob. Yeah. No, like, they're allies. Like, they work together. You guys hear me say that all the time, right? They are friends. They work together as allies. Like, that's getting so obvious that now, like, pretty high level people are even saying it. Like, I listened to Bill Burr talk about this recently, where just like, yeah, they're allies. They work together. They're friends. Like, they're buddies. Like, they're not interested in preventing any of this from happening. Under the past 40 years, and so, okay, you guys are having a juice. Yeah. What's wrong with ensuring everyone has enough food and shelter? Like, isn't that the question, Anemone? Isn't that the question? Isn't it weird? Isn't it the weirdest thing that that anybody in the world at any moment, at any time, thinks it is right that people do not eat and have shelter? Like, we give food and shelter to criminals. Like, if you pull out a gun and shoot your wife and go to jail, you get food and shelter, right? Like, but if you get thrown out of your job and then get rent evicted, tough shit, right? Tough shit. Like, it's really weird how we have this, like, dichotomy of thought when it comes to food and shelter. I am curious about that. I am curious about that Midnight Rose. Oh my god. Oh my god. I gotta find it. Oh, okay, hold on. Yeah, here we go. The Kardashev scale is essentially a scale that lays out the development of spacefaring races, going from harnessing the energy of the planet to the energy of the solar system, etc. Fermi paradox is about how if there's so many planets and so many galaxies and the universe is so old, why haven't we seen aliens yet? I mean, my opinion of the Fermi paradox is the reason we haven't seen aliens is because the aliens are like, no thank you. Like, straight up, no thanks. Like, nope. And the Great Filter essentially says that there's various things that is likely killing most intelligent life before they can become spacefaring. Climate change, pandemics, wars. Yeah, I think that that's right. That I am actually of the opinion that it is completely impossible for a warfaring people to become successful spacefaring, a spacefaring civilization. I don't think that, to me, like, this whole Great Filter idea essentially boils down to, are you going to play nice or not? Because the universe and the solar system and space very clearly says, in very unconditional terms, if you do violence up here, you die. It's not a gradient, right? It's like maybe there is a gradient, but it's not like a rainbow gradient. It's like this. Like maybe you can get away with doing something maybe once or twice, maybe. But if you are a violent people, the way that we are a violent people, you will not survive the rigors of space. Space demands cooperation. Space demand, like this whole individualistic mindset dies in space. It's just not serious. It's not real. The idea that you're going to create any kind of chain of communication or chain of supply, the idea that you're going to create any infrastructure of any sort in an environment like space while having this competition breeds innovation mindset of hyper-individualism means that you're going to get destroyed. And space is going to destroy you fast. Fast. It's not going to be slow. It's going to be like immediate, instantaneous, you are gone. And to me, that's the greatest of the filters when we get talking about the great filter. Like, can you move forward in peace? And if you can't, then you don't get to become a spacefaring people. And now we're seeing that there are filters that are built in the world itself. That the world itself is willing to tolerate a certain degree of warring and a certain degree of pollution. Like, that seems pretty straightforward. That the Earth is like, okay, it makes sense that a bunch of crazy monkeys who just like are being spit out of this generative process would pollute and have war for a bit, right? But there's a threshold. There's a threshold, and the Earth is reaching it. The Earth is reaching it where it's like, yeah, okay, like, are you gonna figure this out or not? Like, we're just gonna put you back into the Stone Age then. We're just gonna put you back into the Stone Age. Like, we gave you these toys. You figured out oil. Congratulations, right? Like, fire was the first one. Oil was the next one. Like the Pandora's box. But what are we doing with it? Mainly burning it so that we can drive around. Like the idea that there is like a super intelligent group of people who are planning these people are dumb. The future generations, should there be any, will 100% look back on us burning oil so that we can move horseless carriages to jobs we hate. They're going to look at that and be like, these people were morons. These people were like dumb as bricks. Burning oil for that? Are you kidding me? Oil is the life force of creation, recycled in upon itself. It is quite literally the bones of our ancestors that carries in it enormous potential and enormous possibility. And the idea that we are literally burning it in big super trucks so that we can drive to jobs we hate for fucking money, for stuff that we printed out of nowhere in the first place, is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Like, we are stupider than, like, cave-dwelling barbarians. By a lot. Because one's got to believe that cave-dwelling barbarians would come across something as precious and as vital as oil and recognize we probably shouldn't just burn this for no reason. Right? Like, it's a staggering thing that we're doing. It's a staggering thing that we're doing. And the reality, right? Like, once we're done extracting and burning all of this oil so that we can go get burgers and shit, we're definitely not getting into space. Like, we're definitely not getting into space then. Like, we're not doing that. Can you imagine if we had have discovered oil without these psychopathic capitalists around and actually sat down and thought, what should we do with this? Oil is a non-renewable resource. I mean, technically it is renewable, but it takes millions and millions of years. But in any case, it's a non-renewable resource. maybe we should use this in order to create renewable sources, right? Like making solar panels makes all the sense in the world. That's a type of logical connection that I think a rational species and a rational people should be making. That, non-renewable resource turns into device that creates renewable resource. Like, there's something that makes sense. But we're not interested in making sense. We're interested in destroying and burning everything around us. And future generations will look back on us and they'll understand fully. Like, you took all that oil and you burnt it, eh? Like, they're going to literally have contraptions that are going to have like a single drop of oil. It's going to go doink, and that single drop of oil is going to cascade into this enormous, massive kind of thing. And they're going to be so frugal with it because we just burnt the shit out of all of it. Like, they're going to hate us, and they're right to. They're absolutely right to. Like, if anything I say persists through time to any degree, it is very simply this. That if you are, for whatever reason, for whatever kind of position, listening to this in the future, like if it's 100 years on or something like this, and you're looking back on this period of time and thinking these people were fucking ridiculous morons and I hate them, you're right to do that. Congratulations. You're very smart and intelligent to think that we are a stupid people. Because we desperately are. We elected Donald Trump. Like, come on. Like, come on. We're dumb. We're dumb. We can bring Mars to Earth now. We don't have to wait 20 years. Dude, that's the most ridiculous. Like, that's some Elon Musk stuff right there. Dyson Sphere. America is a Borderlands DLC. I can't wait for Cyberpunk gets electronic human interfacing. Dude, I'm so skeptical of that. Fun fact about Elon Musk, none of Musk Adventures has ever brought him any success. Yeah, he always crashes any company that he touches. Yeah, because that's not what it's about, right? Like, I am genuinely of the opinion that Elon Musk is he just has daddy issues. That's all it is. That he's just a guy who is desperate to prove to his daddy that he's super, 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 super good. That's it. He just wants daddy to love him, and he wants a hug from his dad. That's it. And but his dad is probably one of these hard-nosed, like, you gotta go out there and be successful. I'm no son of mine is gonna sit around and frou-frou with the doop-doop-doop-doo. Right? So he just probably just never got told that that his dad loved him. It's pretty straightforward shit. Pretty straightforward shit. It's nice talking to you guys, I gotta tell you. I feel like I don't get to do it enough anymore. I'm so friggin' busy anymore. I'm so friggin' busy these days. It's just ridiculous. Bad Empanada made a video demonstrating how the WEF economic policies are essentially the same as what Milton Friedman taught. But of course, no conservative ever talks about that kind of crap. Well, I mean, honestly, like, every time somebody brings up Milton Friedman, I'm pretty shocked by it. Like, what happened in Chile alone should like, to me, bringing up Milton Friedman, like, you could try to bring his ideas in. I think there is room for those ideas, I suppose. But if you're actually going to stand up and be like, Milton Friedman said, it'd be pretty much the same as saying Goebbels said. Like, the guy was the main economic driver of Pinochet. Like, sorry, you don't get to just walk away from that. You don't just get to be like, yeah, my ideas completely failed an entire country and plunged societies into desperation. We massacred tens of thousands of people in our shock therapy idea. But, yeah, you know, I got some ideas. Like, and Milton Friedman's just one of the, like, he's just a really persuasive huckster. That's all. Like, I think one of the most successful grifts that Milton Friedman really introduced into the conversation was the idea that government is somehow separate from corporate power, that government is its own, like, thing, as opposed to being intrinsically tied to the society, and that the society is dominated by capital. Like, he created a perfect scapegoat. And that delusion persists to this day, right? So anytime anything bad happens, an entire segment of the society can just go, the government's the problem. We got to get rid of the entire idea of government. We should be ruled directly by apartheid emerald babies. Like, it's just really bad. Midnight Rose. Okay, but have you considered that Bad Empanada is a tanky? I'm very smart, by the way. Yeah, I've never understood the term tanky as an insult. Like, I've never understood. I don't take it as an insult. It doesn't offend me at all. Somebody says, like, yeah, tanky. I'm like, what? I'm big, I'm sweet, and I blow up Nazis? Sounds awesome. I bet no conservative can even explain what is neoliberalism, who came up with it, how JT and PP are essentially promote the exact same economic policies. Yeah. This is the number one part that I came to realize today about the whole JT and PP debate. And I started to ask conservatives who say that China is corrupting Canada, simply asking them to do what economic policies do we live under? Yeah, like there is robust. This is why they're allies, right? This is why the Republicans and the Democrats and the liberals and the conservatives are allies. This is why they ally with one another, because they create this illusion of a debate, right? They have big, robust debates about very small issues while keeping actual conversation and actual discourse about it out of the conversation completely. So, like, the housing crisis is a really good example of this, right? Like, what is the narrative about in the housing crisis? Well, we didn't build enough buildings. We didn't build enough. We need to build more. We got to build more houses is what we got to do. We got to make sure that there's more houses built. We got to build more houses faster and build them better, right? So the capitalist class has agreed. There's a wide consensus that capitalism failed to produce enough basic shelter, right? So they're confessing to the incompetence and failings of capitalism on that degree, because it's better to confess to that failing, to say, oh, whoopsie, than it is to just admit that they're hoarding the resource, that they're just hoarding the properties and keeping them for themselves, and they don't care if you're homeless. And the whole grift is us developers who bribe politicians want politicians to use your tax money to pay us to build more properties while we simultaneously hoard other properties. Like, that's the grift. And so JT and PP get together, and they both look at each other and they both say, we are developing and building more, and we're going to build faster, we're going to build more, we're definitely building more. And they simultaneously agree to just omit the fact that we have enough housing, it's just being hoarded by psychopaths, right? That's their job. That's their whole job. That's their whole job, is to create this false argument, to make sure the debate falls within the positive of the capitalist class. And you know things have gotten bad for the capitalists when they're willing to literally admit that they're incompetent losers that can't do basic stuff, right? Like, literally, communist societies build giant apartment complexes and house their people. Capitalist societies go, oh, well, we forgot to build buildings, and we're really struggling to build more buildings. And that's supposed to be, we're all supposed to go like, oh, I understand, it's difficult. It's tough. It's tough, you know, it's a difficult thing. Yeah. Biden admin has permitted more oil and gas. Yeah. Tanky, it used to mean people who were in support of Khrushchev rolling tanks into Romania, I think, Hungary. I mean, usually when somebody says it to me, it's in reference to Stalin. Like, I don't know. It has like a Stalinist sort of thing. Like, nobody ever says Stalinist to me. It's always tanky. Even though I don't think they know what they're talking about, so. Why so much hate for anarcho-communists? Do I hate it? Have I been talking about it? Anyway. You should look into Marxist-Leninism, Maoism. It's all good for my position, dude. Climate change is as fake as birds and the female orgasm. Sarcasm, if that wasn't implied. Thank you, omnisciental tendencies. Thank you. I appreciate that. I answered your question. Oh, yeah. And then I went back and we did that whole thing. I know part of the Great Filter is also that we've already been through multiple, one big one being the nuclear age and industrialization, although we're still kind of dealing with the second one. Yeah, I mean, like, the system of capital will not allow us to progress. Like the capitalists literally say that capitalism is the end of history. Like, if that's not just a basic admission that we are not going to evolve, like, we are going to stay exactly here. This is it. We are a fully grown person. We are a fully grown society. This is the best. The end of civilization itself. Nothing will ever be greater than this moment right here, so time out, freezies, no move forward from here. Right? That's basically what they say. And so what we've done is we've created a society that has limited itself to the imagination of a small group of psychopaths. That if what is imagined and what the future of the world is going to look like doesn't look good to these narcissistic losers, then it doesn't happen. It can't be manifest because it doesn't fit in line with how these people think about what the world should look like. And they're usually the most dim-witted, like the least capable people in the room. Like their life's experience is literally just, keep whipping that slave until he makes you enough money. You need to push yourself and motivate yourself in space. Hustle, baby, hustle. Yeah. In space, they can't hear you scream, but they can hear the cha-ching of dollar bills. Space Uber. Yes, I can't wait for the interstellar gig economy. Yeah, I just don't think that people really respect and understand, like, when we were sending men to the moon, like when the space race was on, some of those flights failed and, like, literally people died and there were explosions because there was, like, condensation. Like in the movie Apollo 13, Tom Hanks, right? The entire reason that was a crisis is because there was a bit of condensation in one of the O2 canisters. Like, space does not give a fuck about you. Like, you think about the shit that's going on in East Palestine, right? The derailment there, this fucking Chernobyl event that we're all supposed to no longer talk about, I guess. Like, imagine that happening in space, because that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, space isn't going to just be like, oopsie-doo. It's going to kill you all. You're going to die. All your infrastructure will be blown apart. You will not be able to recover it. You will experience enormous, enormous losses. Like, there's this, it's just baffling to me that we actually think we're going to be successful in space with this kind of mindset. Once the fabricator General Musk brings to Mars, yeah, we will be blessed. Now we got a sick person. We got a sick person in chat. Hope you're doing well. What do you want about? So, what, John? You're saying that you don't like how people are burning oil to drive their lifted Ford F-150 to ride your tail down the highway and blind you for 10 miles? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was a good idea to let single people own vehicles that are as large as World War II tanks so that they can, like, go pick up their kids from soccer practice. You know? Like, it just seems like a really dim-witted way to operate. Space is going to be where trillionaires are going to be made. You just have to believe in your hustle. Hashtag space hustle. Got to get that money we print. And, like, you just know that, like, we'll go up there and we'll start mining asteroids. And we're going to start mining asteroids for, like, coal. We'll be like, there's coal on this asteroid. We've struck coal on this asteroid. Let's mine the coal from the asteroid. And, like, on that very same asteroid, There's going to be like a type of material we've never seen before that the aliens will be looking at as we're mining the coal and like blowing up this asteroid to get the coal. And they'll be like, the material that you're blowing up to get at that coal is 100 million times cleaner and gives you 100 million times more energy with a very similar process. Like, you just know that that's what's going to happen. For decades, we'll do that. For decades, we'll act that way. Yeah, we're also going to try to dim the sun. Yeah. I love that. I've seen that. Like, they're actually talking about that. Where it's like part of the plan for fighting against climate change is like, let's dim the sun. We're so normal, eh? What a normal. That's not a evil Machiavellian genius kind of like an evil villain plot I've ever seen. Good to see you, Adam. Off topic, is BDS, that's boycott, divest, and sanction hypocritical? Many who call for sanctions to be lifted off Syria, Venezuela also call for BDS on Israel. I don't think it's hypocritical. I just think that it's like, if you're going to use those tactics, you should use them against people who are actually doing things like apartheid, right? Like, I don't think it is hypocritical. Like, what has Venezuela done? What has Syria done? What they've done is they've stood up to Western hegemony. That's what they've done, right? Whereas what's Israel done? Well, literally running an apartheid state. So I don't think it's hypocritical at all. You can't dim fusion in a primary star. Yeah, but the whole problem is that, like, the heat is coming in. So we want to block the heat. So we're going to block the sun. We're gonna do like a Mr. Burns style disc and like just cover the sun. Yeah, Israel is aligned with America. The others are economic and imperialist targets. Israel also actively perpetrating a genocide. Yeah. I had a thought, says Midnight Rose, a couple of days ago. Could you consider great man theory worship of the self? Although I guess it's worship of the individual. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like that, I said worship of the self, but it is really worship of the individual. Because that is what great man theory is all about. It's the idea that like Stalin or Mao or Lincoln, like any of these figures, were themselves the thing that was responsible for the event that occurred, as opposed to like just like the icon or the image of the person who everybody was kind of like the totem that everybody was touching, right? That like. Lincoln was just Lincoln's a good example because it's an American example, right? That like the abolitionist movement was way bigger than Lincoln, like way bigger than Lincoln, and so the idea that we all are supposed to salute and like put our hand on our heart and like sing, God Bless America, because Abraham Lincoln came in like Jesus Christ and solved the world's problems. It's just like such a weird way to look at the world, but it's pretty common. And I understand why people do it. There is something of like an intellectual shorthand, but like it's become a type of worship where we're not really capable of actually having a serious discussion about what's actually going on in the world because of it. And it's quite annoying, frankly. Did you see Jason Unruh is semi-retiring from YouTube? Got a 2-week ban from YouTube? I don't know who this is, so. But John, giving housing to people is communism and takes away freedom. Yeah. John, I'm often called a tanky for exposing U.S. imperialism. Yeah. Pretty common. If capitalism truly is the best system we can come at, we deserve extinction. Yeah. Especially over the not-so-controversial war in Europe. Yeah. Considering that I have yet heard any Western media about how the Big Bad was able to take the town that was fought over the last 6 months. Even the very good president of that country said the city doesn't matter, it will fall, it will continue to live on in our heart, contradicting ourselves from all the other time. Yeah, like, the narrative of what is going on in Ukraine, in my opinion, hasn't changed at all. Like, since the outset. What have I been saying about the Ukrainian war the entire time? That for the Russians, this is an existential threat that they must respond to. They don't really have an alternative. They tried to use many different alternatives and could not. And for the West, it's just not like that. That the Russians are willing to field reserves, they're willing to pull up people, they're willing to put boots on the ground, and the West is not. So, like, now it isn't about winning. It's just about pouring as many resources into the pockets of weapons manufacturers. It's about Lockheed Martin and Raytheon at this point, right? And there are other narratives, like who owns what land, and like, is Ukraine even going to continue to persist and exist as a country? Like these sorts of larger narratives. But like, I don't think that there is a plan for escalation in any direction, because I think that the people who are involved in the process of grinding the Ukrainians' bones and blood into dollar bills are basically getting what they want. And I think that's true almost on all sides now. Like even the Russians are doing that to a certain degree now. That it's about funneling money into the pockets of wealthy weapons manufacturers at this point. You know, guys like Tony Stark. Yeah, humans living out the most fulfilling experience possible under capitalism. It's just a picture of Mr. Incredible, depressed in his office cubicle, yeah. Let's do a poll. How will humans destroy themselves? Number 1, ignoring climate change. 2, nuclear war. 3, aliens wiping us out. 4, let's go Skynet. I don't think it's going to be Skynet. I think that the AI fascination that's going on right now has 2 functions in the capitalist society. Function number 1, it's useful to sell products, right? If you can entrance the public with this, oh, it's AI, oh my God, you should play with this toy. Play with this toy. Oh my God, it's the same toy that you had last year, except now it's got AI, right? It's the same toy that you had last year, except now it's got a more robust AI. Right? Keep them on the treadmill of consumerism, right? And I think that AI facilitates that a lot. That there's like an advancement. It's like they've figured out a way to package AI systems in a way so that they're much more consumable than they've been. And the fact that AI can make like kind of the same picture over and over again with out of another picture is sort of interesting. But it's pretty low level stuff, and there's not really, I don't think that there's a serious threat there, right? Like, it just doesn't look, and honestly, like, I think that with a couple of exceptions, most of this AI stuff is going to get pretty boring. Like, I think it's pretty entrancing for a minute, but I think people are already getting bored with it, right? That, like, we've seen what it can do. We've seen the dance that it can do, and we realize that it's not that big a deal. It's not that shocking what it can do, and we're all kind of moving on with our lives because it's not that scary or interesting. But the scary narrative, right, is useful. It's useful to keep people scared. It's useful to keep people going, oh, 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 oh. And so you want that kind of narrative to persist in the society. Right? And that'd be a much more useful and easy way to scare people into compliance than creating like a fake narrative about climate change. Number 3, aliens wiping us out. I don't think aliens are going to wipe us out. Because I'm more or less of the opinion that aliens have absolutely no reason whatsoever to interact with us at all. Like, the only reason any alien species would even be talking to us would be straight out curiosity, would just be straight out like, oh, look, it's another life, it's another one. Oh, it's like us, but like not as advanced. Oh, look. Like, that's it. That's the only reason that they would even be talking to us. And the only reason they would even be looking at us would be to see if we're a threat, right? So, like, the only reason they would pay us any mind at all, instead of just being like, here's another planet full of dumb monkeys, is just to be like, oh, okay, these dumb monkeys have nukes. Are they a threat to us? And like, so many other things would have to happen before the aliens wiped us out, and aliens wiping us out would be so easy that it would happen and we wouldn't even know it. Like, it would be so easy for them to do that it's like, to even spend time thinking about it is kind of a waste of time. Like, it's interesting in like a science fiction sort of way, but the truth is that they could just remove our atmosphere and that's it. The story's over, right? And they could do that really easily with the technology they have. So, so it comes down to climate change or nuclear war, right? If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on climate change. I'd put my money on climate change. And the reason why I say that is that the nuclear war narrative, the most damaging punch is the one that you didn't see coming. And the nuclear war narrative is always present, and it's always there, and it's always like this looming factor in international politics, and it's and mutually assured destruction and all that is part of the conversation. But I just don't think we'll ever get to that point, right? That even the most crazed, psychopathic, like narcissist in the world is still like, but I don't want to die, which is exactly what nuclear war means. So the very person who would be responsible for pressing the button to create the situation would also be the same type of self-interested person who would never do it. And that the only type of humans that would actually move forward into real nuclear war, into something actual that is actually nuclear war, would be like a straight up death cult. Like a straight up, like they're carrying nukes around. Like they're like straight up from Fallout kind of stuff, where like they go into the halls of Congress and there's a nuclear bomb hanging over Congress, and at the end of every meeting they go, "All hail the nuke! Hail the nuke!" Like, that's the type of shit that we're talking about, where they would be like, "Today, brothers and sisters, is the great conflagration. We, the worshippers of the atom, have come to obliterate all life. Today we shall hit the great red button, and our enemies shall retaliate against us. But fear not, for we shall join the great atom in the sky and merge our consciousnesses with its radiation from now until eternium. All hail the nuke!" And everybody would go, "All hail the nuke!" That's the kind of society you would need to make nuclear war plausible. Like, I just don't think so. Like, sure, the people who are ruling us are psychopaths, but they're not going to kill themselves. That if the option is don't drop the nukes, don't throw the nukes, just use conventional war to kill people, then that's what they're going to do. Climate change is the one that's really going to get us, because we are the most disrespectful, probably society on Earth, in the history of Earth. Like, it's the disrespect, right? When it comes to nuclear war, that's a human phenomenon that comes out of humans, and so we respect it. We say, "Oh, nuclear war, well, that's us, and we respect us, and we know how destructive we are, and so we respect that." We have zero respect whatsoever for the planet. We have zero respect for the Earth. We don't understand how the Earth works. We don't care to understand how the Earth works. We believe that we can just ruthlessly exploit it, that it is a dead, inert rock that is just floating around in space. And the consequences of this, so because of our disrespect, because of our ignorance, because of our stupidity on this, when the backlashes start happening, when Earth starts fighting back more seriously, it's going to blindside us. It's going to blindside us in big, serious ways. Like, we are not, like, there is a moment coming, and it's going to be simultaneously horrific, but for a person like me, I'm going to sit there and be like, sweet, here it is, right? where it's going to become undeniable to everyone, where standing up and denying climate change is going to be considered like repugnant, like on the same kind of level as Holocaust denial, where people will actually be like, oh, you're gross, like you're a gross person. Like, we still are kind of in this place where ignoring climate change or being a climate change denialist is just embarrassing. People are just like, I can't believe. It's like that, where people, the attitude that people have of it is not, you're a fucking Nazi, we gotta do something, right? That's not the attitude. The attitude is, oh my God, this shit, I can't believe, right? That's the attitude. And a moment is coming, and I think that moment is going to be when the water levels come up, when places like Florida and Louisiana, right? When places like Beijing, like Vancouver, are experiencing, like New York, are experiencing serious crisis moments, serious problems. That'll be when it'll finally be unacceptable to be a climate change denialist. And serious things will happen to them, I hope. Like, I'm genuinely of the opinion that we should be doing something about these people. Like, I think that they are dangerous. I think that being a climate change denialist at this stage in the game is akin to being a Holocaust denier. That you definitely want people to suffer. Like, you definitely are in favor of suffering. You want people to experience pain. That it's a very pro-destruction position. And now I think it's unavoidable. I think that we are going to experience that because we refuse to acknowledge the seriousness of the crisis. And we kind of have this attitude in regard to climate change where it's like, we'll just adapt. That's a big one that you get. Oh, we'll just adapt. Oh, sure, something bad will happen, but we'll just adapt. Nah. Once that ball gets rolling, once the ball gets rolling, and once it's out of our control, right? Like, once we can no longer pull it back, once we can no longer put the genie back in the bottle, once we can no longer rebox Pandora, right? Like, once we can no longer deal with that, it's going to just snowball. It's just going to go and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one crisis will create a bigger crisis, which will create a bigger crisis, which will create a bigger crisis. And you can't adapt your way out of having no food. You can't adapt your way out of radiation bombarding the planet's surface. Like, you can't adapt your way out of all vegetation being scoured from the surface of the earth. You can't adapt your way out of an ice age. Like, you can't adapt your way out of these things, right? That there is such a thing as just like a scour coming and just going, and that's the end of that story. That the earth will become an ice ball or a desert planet and we will die. And then for a couple million, maybe even 100 million years, it'll persist in that state, ensuring that it's cleansed itself of our presence. And then it'll start the regenerative process again. And there'll be another species that begins the journey anew. And hopefully, the best thing that we could do as a people and as a species would be to erect some kind of monument to our stupidity. That the wisest amongst us, that those of us who actually do believe in the persistence of life itself, and if not the persistence of humanity, the persistence of life itself and the persistence of life on this planet, the best thing that we could do is erect an indestructible monument etched with the story of our fucking stupidity that says on it explicitly, respect this earth or it will scour you from the surface. That's exactly what it's going to do. And it's going to do it, and it's going to do it in such a manner that we're not going to see it coming. Like, there will be people who are, like, there are people who are, like, saying things are coming. But for the masses of the people, for the bulk of the population, the crises as they unfold will be dramatic. And eventually they'll just become an all-encompassing. Like, they will become the story. Like, right now, it's like you're reading Game of Thrones, and you know the White Walkers are coming, right? And every so often you get, like, embedded in, like, the politics of the Lannisters and the Starks. And, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this is happening. Oh, Daenerys is over here and all that kind of stuff. And then there's just, like, a persistent reminder of, like, there's the White Walkers are coming, right? The White Walkers are coming. And eventually the White Walkers become the story because they're coming. And that's climate change. That, like, all of this, like, Ukraine and, like, Donald Trump and the rise of fascism in the United States and the rise of China, India, the whole BRICS organization, the international politics, all of that, like, that's great, and we should know these things, but the White Walkers are coming. And we're not ready. At all. Even a little. We don't even care to be ready. Hold on 1 second, guys. I gotta save my dog. Okay, buddy? Oh, you're having a little snorts? You having a little snorty fit? Oh, my little guy's having a little snorty fit. Oh, my little guy's having a little snorty fit. Yeah, you hear that? Gotta massage his neck. Gotta massage his throat. That's the only way to solve it. You gotta massage his little throat. Yeah, my little guy. My little guy. Oh, I know. Okay, guy. We gotta go a little serious. A little bit more serious. You okay? You okay? You okay? You okay? Oh. Yeah, there's just one guy going after a person called Aw in TikTok. It's weird. Every time I look over, this guy's just going after this guy Aw. And I never see Aw say anything. Oh, Aw, why you cry? Oh, there he is. Yap, yap. I'm coming for you. That's not creepy at all, dude. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, dude, if you're saying things like if you don't care if people starve, then you're just a Nazi, right? Another Ronnie comment. It's staggering. It's staggering to watch. I've got to assume that it's bots at this point. I just do. I have to assume that the Ronnie stuff is bots. Right? Go get it, buddy. Go get it. Go get it. There's just no way that Ronnie McNutt would persist this much. Midnight Rose says, I will say that nuclear energy is our best bet right now, but a handful of nuclear accidents and mismanagement by corporations has scared people away. I'm a huge proponent of nuclear energy. It's the way forward, but unregulated under capitalism, it's unsafe. Yeah. To me, that's the problem with it. Like, I tend to agree that from a technological perspective, nuclear is the way forward. Like, I was sort of on the fence for a while. And recently, Oliver Stone, of all people, did an interesting film on nuclear energy. And he's fairly persuasive. And one of the most persuasive things is that all of the accidents that have happened, like, the amount of people who have died in all of these nuclear accidents is in the hundreds. Right? It's not a nuclear bomb, it's a nuclear facility. And when there's an accident, like the amount of people that have died from all nuclear accidents is in the hundreds. Right? Compare that to, like, car travel. Compare that to gun accidents. Compare that to anything else. It's like so small. Like, it's so small. It's like on the same scale as getting into a car getting into an accident in your own house. Like, it's that kind of level. But I think you're right. Like, it's just got a bad PR. It's just got a bad rap. Because, again, like, if I'm the fossil fuel industry, I'm not that keen on having nuclear competing. Oh, yeah, Pat Robertson died. Yeah, I hope he has a good time in hell. AI art is awesome. I actually disagree. I tend it feels very samey. It doesn't have it's cool the first few times you see it. Like, it's cool the first few times you see it. but once the novelty wears off, it's just kind of samey. It's got pretty big gaps in its in how it views things. I'm not that impressed by it, and to me, that's like the death of art. Like the death of art is that the artist should be making something that is spontaneous, that has a that is enticing, right? And AI art kind of it achieves that initially because it is new, and the idea of, oh, it's a robot doing it is new, and so there's a novelty there. But you see it kind of generate the same picture over and over again, and you realize like, oh, like that's basically what it is. It just does that one picture. It's like take you and then make you like a nature scene, or take you and make you like a cyberpunk scene, and those are sort of the two things that it can do. Yanis Varoufakis write an article in MarketWatch about Amazon using AI to break up unions. Yeah, that's what it's actually going to get used for, right? It's not going to get used for art. It's going to get used to find like the appropriate statistical way to like suppress workers and stuff like that, right? Like that's what it's actually going to be used for. Bugatti Boy, the end of Canada is near. I mean, it's the I don't know, like the end of Canada, like it'll come down to whether or not you get independence movements, right? And I do think that Brexit has actually kind of cooled that sentiment, because most people acknowledge that Brexit was a mistake, and so it's somewhat cooled that sentiment. But we'll see. To me, it's about the decline of the dollar. That once the dollar declines, the rules are going to change. Everything's going to change when the dollar declines, right? When the dollar declines, and you can no longer really get the goods that you can get, and when your rent doubles, and when your bills double, and your wage stays the same, all like the rules are going to change. And so I think there's going to be big independence movements that come. But the balkanization of Canada and America is actually the most likely thing to happen. So I don't know what the timeline would look like, but it seems very unlikely to me that the United States would stay intact, and Canada along with it, especially as the capitalists do everything they can to destroy it. Isaac, good to see you, bud. The 350,000 Ukrainian troops the West spent 9 years training have been killed. I doubt that when people in the West learn about this terrible outcome, they'll be willing to defend Ukraine. Yeah, I think that's right. Like it's just about turning lives into money at this point. That's all it is. It's just about grinding people into money, so that guys like the owners of Raytheon can just keep making more money. That's all it's about now. Bugatti Boy, like when I was in high school learning about the complicated math or science, knowing it's all useless. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Like the education system is so, like, I'm thinking about going back to school just to become like a supply teacher, just for my own like survival more than anything. But like, I 100% would be doing it for the money, and that's it. Like I would just be like, oh, you want me to read this to these kids? Okay, and then I just would, because like I actually think our school system is worthless. Like you take a look at the outcomes, that it's doing, and you realize pretty fast, like, oh, like we are literally training yes men to destroy the species. Oh, okay. Grinning says AI is gaining steam. Don't discount it. They can monitor workers' conversations, behavior patterns, and target potential union organizers. No, I think you're right from that perspective. From like the perspective of the capitalist using it, it's a powerful and useful tool for capitalists, right? I just don't think like it's going to actually have that much meaning for us outside of what the capitalists will do with it to us, if you understand what I mean. If humanity would stop procreating and slowly die off, we would be better off. That seems to be what's happening. The population is in decline, right? Like we've created such an unworkable, it's creating such an unworkable environment that like People can't even raise families. Like people can't even get into relationships. People can't have kids. So it looks like the system of capital is doing exactly that. Yeah, AI is replacing jobs faster than the OG NAFTA. Yeah. Well, because, I mean, so many of these jobs are pointless in the first place, right? Like, the system of capital is a worthless system. It produces nothing of value. Like we're all just sort of entranced by video games and pornography and burgers, more or less. That's it. Like, it doesn't really do anything that has value outside of just like, oh man, I got to jerk off today. Sweet. Bees are going extinct or becoming endangered. Yeah, that'll be the real thing. I'd love to become a beekeeper, dude. I would love to become a beekeeper. Yeah, the Canadian government hates their people. The average person means nothing. Yeah. Well, and we just keep voting conservative liberal. What do you expect? Like, if you keep voting for the psycho's just going to keep acting like a psycho. It's like how after the 2008 financial collapse, right? After the 2008 financial collapse, no one went to jail. There was no punishment, and in fact, the very people responsible for it were given money. So it was essentially a big signal from the society that you can just do this. It doesn't matter, right? You can collapse entire economies. You can destroy millions of people's lives. It's completely fine, and we'll give you billions of dollars for it. Like, that's how our society operates now. Death ultimately keeps humans in check. Yeah, the Great Leveler. The Great Leveler. The thing that makes the whole narrative of the individualist as childish as possible. That, like, I got the Bugatti and the house and the bitches and I did all the thing and I died too. Great. Good for you, bud. Put it on your tombstone. Yeah, we barely have respect for ourselves. Humans exploit the environment and themselves. Yeah. Adam says, predictions about AI I've seen argue that if AI becomes sentient like us, the future immediately becomes unpredictable. It'll evolve past our understanding almost instantly. Not scary, 10 years out maybe. We'll see about that. I'm relatively skeptical about all of this. Like, I think that it's very convenient from a salesman position to talk about AI as if it's going to be this, like, thing that encompasses everything, right? Like, it's a very convenient salesman tactic, right? Like, buy my product, AI will take over, you want to be in on the ground floor, right? Like, that kind of salesman type talking is all over this, right? And I'm not trying to say that AI isn't interesting or that it won't be disruptive or that it doesn't have these sorts of things. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just kind of like putting the brakes on, like, AI is going to be this terrifying force that's going to eliminate all human life. Like, it's sort of weird that we've manufactured a narrative of an AI taking out humanity while we are simultaneously actually destroying ourselves. Like, that's the thing I think that's so strange. Like, we know that we're destroying ourselves with climate change. We know we're doing it. Like, the evidence is overwhelming. It's right in front of our face. And instead of just accepting that and having serious conversations about that, we're talking about robots. You know? It's just like, I think that we should probably stay focused on the problems that we know exist instead of inventing ones. Midnight Rose says, I think part of the problem of climate change denial is a lot of people don't realize that climate change is more benign things, like more tornadoes, worse storms, more extreme weather. Yeah. Doug Ford is, I don't know why I call him Chuck Ford, but is denying or claiming no evidence forest fire caused by climate change. Yep. Got that article right here. Like, this should result in an immediate resignation. Like, how do we know that we live in a barbarian state, that we're ruled by Luddites, and that our society is flabby, lazy, and pathetic? Right here. This should result in an immediate resignation. Like, on the same kind of level as if somebody stood up. If Doug Ford stood up today and said, you know, that Adolf Hitler had something. He had something interesting to say. We would expect him to resign. We would expect, I would expect a general decline in popularity and support for somebody walking around saying, you know, those Nazis, you know, they didn't do everything bad. They did some things that were good, you know. We should maybe learn from those Nazis, you know. But instead of that, this is still a serious thing that somebody can say and still retain any kind of support. And again, it does come down to the basic point that we live in a stupid culture full of stupid people who are proud of how stupid they are. It's the pride in it that gets me the most. That like we're quite pleased with how illiterate and ignorant we are. We're quite happy about it, and that's allowed, you know, kings of ignorance to stand up and say the dumbest things you've ever heard and still retain support, right? And like there does come a point where like you can blame education systems and you can blame this kind of stuff for a little while to a certain degree, but like there does come a point where you have to be a willful contributor. Like you have to willingly go along with it, and you have to willingly bob your head, and you have to willingly go along with the idea that all of the weather is getting more intense. Every day is hotter than the last. We're constantly breaking heat records. Oh man, it's hard to breathe the air today because of the smoke that's coming out. I keep getting told that it's just going to get worse. It's climate change is a Chinese hoax. You know, there really does come a point where you just got to kind of go, maybe we actually have just drunk a lot of lead. Like, maybe that's really what is actually happening. Maybe the sad, sorry truth about Western civilization is that we're surrounded by pollution. We have too much lead in our blood. We got too much lead in our brains. We just don't have the capacity to be reasonable. It's just we've lost that ability somehow. That we don't know what a problem looks like, and we don't know what problem solving is. That we are essentially just like a wild animal shoveling as much food into his face as he can. And if somebody brings up a problem, we just go, that sounds like a you problem, and just keep shoveling food into our faces. And it's all full of poison. It's probably just making us stupider in the first place. And as much as Marxists and Leninists and these guys try, as much as people try to create large systemic critiques and all this kind of stuff, like there really does come a point where I gotta kind of just say, like, maybe we are just stupid. Like maybe we are stupid. Like maybe the human failing and the reason, like you talk about the great filter, talk about the things that, well, maybe the thing that they're filtering out is, is the species smart enough to understand not to kill itself? And I think the answer is no, right? Like we're very dim-witted. Like the people who are supposed to be the smartest around us, like my favorite is Jordan Peterson. You guys know, I bring him up all the time, right? I love him because he's so stupid. Like he gets stupider by the day. Like anytime he shows up wearing like an Elon Musk tie, right? Like it just gets really obvious that this guy was always a moron, right? But he compared to everybody else, he's a genius, right? Like he's the dumb guy's smart guy. And like if you're walking around being like Jordan Peterson's the smartest guy I've ever seen in my life, then like, yep, there it is. Like there's the problem. Because like the ideas that have come out of the culture are so stupid, right? Like the idea of individualism is so dumb. The longer you think about it, the dumber it gets. It's fundamentally the belief that a single individual is more powerful than every other individual that exists or ever has existed, every institution that exists and has ever existed, and also, and this is my favorite part, a single individual can be more powerful than all the forces of the universe combined. That's the Jordan Peterson ethos. And nobody has stood up and been like, what are you, fucking stupid? What are you, like, it's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard in my life. and yet it's like the prevailing ethos of our society. Yeah, you just need to work harder. Grindstead. The universe has never done anything bad to anybody. Everybody's on a level playing field, constantly, 100% of the time. Normal. This is a normal idea, and not the stupidest thing anyone's ever heard. Yeah, AI art is not real art. Like, it's just kind of like dangling keys. Like, it's just kind of a distraction more than anything. Like, I understand why we're kind of taken by it. President Pat Robertson. Jesus told me to press the launch button. I looked into my heart and I asked Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, what should I do today in response to this Russian aggression? And Jesus looked deep into my heart and he said, Pat Robertson, my child, now is the time to make the greatest of sacrifices to usher in the age of the apocalypse. Like, it's a good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. Everybody, I need you to look into your heart right now. I need you to look deep into your heart and ask yourself seriously and sincerely with all of the spirit of creation around you. Do you love Jesus? And if you love Jesus, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit that share button. And if you got it in your heart, think about donating. Jesus would love it if you did. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. I miss my calling, I think. I feel like I miss my true calling. If I had been born like a little bit earlier, right? If I hadn't got hit with like university and like the internet, I think I'd be a really great Pentecostal preacher, right? Still more with this, eh? The Ronnie McNutt stuff is wild. This is wild. I do gotta believe it's bots. Do I even have a job? I have a full-time job, Grungus. Thanks for at least asking. Most people don't. They just assume I don't. Right? I work a full-time job. Did you know that you get time off from jobs and that people make decisions for what they should do with those things while they do it? But thanks for asking. Oh, Chris Handsome. That's not a very handsome thing to say, my man. You might actually be a Nazi. More Ronnie McNutt stuff. It's great. Man, I'm so hostile. I talk to Nazis a lot, dude. You just watched me do it. How many degrees do I have? I have a degree from the University of Manitoba. Adam says, predictions about how AI, I've seen argue that AI becomes sentient. Oh, I've already read this. Yeah. Those who say we will adapt don't want us to adapt. They usually seem to prefer to stay on this coal or oil thing till it's all gone, yeah. But that's my favorite thing, actually. I've stopped trying to, like, at this stage in the game, if you're still living in climate change denialism, if you're still living as a climate change denialist, I don't think you can be convinced. I think you've just chosen to be ignorant, and that's the best you're going to get. Like, you're not going to get any better than that. And so I don't bother trying to talk to them about climate change anymore. What I will try to talk to them about is that we run out of this stuff, right? Like, that's something that's completely undeniable. Like, even to somebody as like hysterically ignorant as a climate change denialist, you have to admit that oil runs out, right? Coal and oil, these things run out. We don't have an infinite supply of it, right? Like even somebody who is as purposefully illiterate as climate change denialists understand the concept of, if I have a glass of water and I drink all the water, I'm out of water, right? So that's all I really ask them about now. That's all I talk to them about now, is I'm just like, what's the plan for when we run out of this stuff? How are we transitioning away from fossil fuels? Because it's actually the same conversation, right? You don't need to convince them about climate change because they've chosen to not be able to be convinced. They're being purposefully obtuse and purposefully ignorant. So change the conversation to get the same result. What do we do about when this stuff is gone? What's the plan then? And most of them just reveal that they're fascists and they don't care. They're just like, well, that's a problem for my kids. It's like, okay, so you don't care about your own kids. Fantastic. Just like before. But you just get to it faster. You don't have to tolerate the whole, like, climate change is a Russian spy or psyop. Like, you don't need to tolerate any of that. You can just cut to the chase and just be like, what's your plan for when we run out of oil? Oh, you don't care about your own kids. Perfect, I'm talking to a fascist. I don't need to communicate anymore. Bye. I wonder where our tax dollars to the government go. Weapons manufacturers, mainly. Like, the budget for the military is almost $1 trillion. Like, that's where your tax dollars are going. They're going to the military-industrial complex. Adapting is doing something about being prepared for a different climate. Yeah, we're not even doing that. Adapt. We should have if we're supposed to eventually. Yeah. Although part of the problem, too, is these religious people that fully believe that because God wouldn't let us die, that climate change isn't a problem. Yeah. Which is so funny because, like, there are texts, like, what's the story of Noah's Ark? Like, what's the story of Job? Like, the Old Testament God is very much a God that's like, yeah, I'll fucking wipe you out. You guys suck. You're gonna get wiped out. Like, so many biblical stories are essentially, like, the narrative of the story is fuck around and find out. That's really the narrative of the story. And so it's like, maybe don't. So the idea that religious people would be like, God would never do that to us. It's like, really? Well, then what's with all these stories where he does exactly that? Yeah, just like John Wick and MCU movies are not cinema. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, the John Wick movies, like, I just can't watch them. Like, it's just like, it's like watching, like watching one explosion is cool. But watching, like, a whole movie of explosions, it's, like, kind of tedious. It'll never stop being funny to me that modern Russia is what neoliberals wanted. And that they're mad that it exists. They asked for it, and they're mad at the consequences. Yeah, look, what the modern capitalists want, because they're psychopaths, is they want Russia to break up. They want to be able to exploit the resources of Russia for themselves. That's what it's about. They don't want Russia to have access to its own resources. They want those resources. One person did get sent to jail for 2008, I believe. Yeah, it was some low-level guy who I think I recently found out that he was like a whistleblower of some kind. So it was literally like the system reinforcing, like, don't be a whistleblower. Seraphim, how you doing? Have you talked about Trump being indicted? The American right wing is going to lose their minds. Yeah, I mean, he's never going to go to jail. He'll pay a fine, which is pretty standard. And it'll be exactly that. It'll be fodder for the American right to rally behind Trump again. Trump's probably going to win the next election. Like, it just seems as though the whole narrative that was surrounding Biden was, we'll push him to the left, right? And that ended up being a crock of shit. And as you know, actual leftists always understood that he was never going to do that. And now it's obvious. And so it's going to be like Donald Trump's return. The whole, like, he's going to drop the whole they stole the election narrative, because if he brings that up too much, then people won't even show up to vote. So he's gonna drop that, and it's gonna be like an old, decrepit, narcissistic psycho like Trump going up against like a demented old weirdo who's always been on the side of capital. Like, it's just going to be the weirdest thing to watch. And it is actually going to be like a real, like, we are going to watch a perfect picture of America. Old, demented, psychopathic, decrepit, selfish, self-interested, incapable of seeing reality, way past its prime, not capable of having serious discussion, not capable of acknowledging reality, not interested in helping anybody. It's just going to be like watching two old monkeys throw shit at each other, and it's the perfect picture for the decline of America. And like America's out of gas. Like it's just out of gas. And Biden versus Trump is the perfect picture for that. It's the institution of American politics and the electoral system has completely lost its credibility. That's why Donald Trump exists. That someone as weak, a candidate as weak and as incapable as Donald Trump is actually considered quite a serious candidate. And it's because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have both lost their credibility completely in the eyes of the electorate. Like, nobody respects Biden. Like, there's nobody walking around wearing blue hats that say Biden's the greatest. Like, there's no slogan for Biden, like, make America great again. Like, that doesn't exist, right? And it doesn't exist because even the people who are voting for Biden know that he's a loser. Like, nobody's like rah Biden. And I'm more or less of the opinion that Donald Trump is going to win this next election. I don't actually think it's going to be particularly close. I think that the promises that the Biden administration made and the narrative that they moved forward with, that they were here to bring America back, right? Well, where was that? They brought America back to what? Exactly. Isaac said, I saw a posting today on Facebook about a disabled girl who doesn't have food to get her to June 22nd, which is when the next disability paycheck comes. It's fucking brutal. Just brutal, man. It's like people worship celebrities and stupid people like Kanye. Yeah. It's funny because Ottawa is a circus. Our politicians are just a bunch of elementary schoolers. I mean, almost literally, right? Like, basically, most of these people are just yes men who just said yes, sir, the entire time. And that's all they've really been doing ever since, is just saying yes, sir. Like, none of them actually have any convictions or vision. None of them have any ideas about how to actually run the place. Like, you listen to Pierre Poilievre talk, and all of his solutions are basically just Friedman talking points. It's basically just like, we acknowledge the problems that people are going through, and the solution is to give more money to billionaires. Like, it's essentially what it's come to. Adam, I think, but my point with this AI, so Adam says, wide margin between AI being harmless versus total annihilation. Changing the tone of an email or audio or video via deepfake could alter an outcome of an election. Minor interference, major change. But this is all imagined. Like, I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, that's all just, like, nice idea. Cool script. Like, neat. There are very serious, real things that are happening. And I just don't care that much to kind of get into a fantasy space about things that may occur. No people in the high schools playing Animal Crossing on the Switch, hopelessly looking for answers yet. Generation Y Me, good to see you, bud. There's a new open pit mine going in a few hours away from me. Pretty great. Yeah, open pit mines are the best. Those are the best, right? Those are the best. I saw a CNN report today that said China was opening a listening post in Cuba that was meant to spy on us. They don't stop coming up with these things. I mean, China is likely opening up something in Cuba. Like, that's likely happening. But it's like the Chinese police station story, right? Here in Canada. All you need to do is change the name of what the thing is, and then people will just go along with it. Right? Oh, I know, buddy. Oh, I know. Grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble. I know, buddy. I know. And, like, chances are good that what China is actually doing is opening up an embassy. And like, let's not screw around. Like, China has spies, and China is doing this kind of stuff for sure. But like, it's not going to be on the same scale as what America gets up to, and it's certainly not there to antagonize America. This is the thing that's so funny about how Americans think and about how the West thinks is literally, we can literally walk into a country and bomb it to the ground, and we expect everybody to think that we have the best intentions and that we're good and holy. But if another country literally opens up an embassy in another country, that's a crisis. Like that's where we're at as a people. That if you actually like look at the history of America, the history is walk into an area, destroy its country, level it to the ground, steal as many resources as you possibly can, right? Blow the entire place apart, and then expect everybody to say, "Thank God the Americans are here." We're better off for the Americans being here, and that's the genuine expectation that the Americans have. But if China or India or Russia or Brazil or anybody opens up an embassy in Cuba, that's an international scandal. They're coming for your children. The Chinese are coming in. They're going to take your jobs, and they're going to make sure that your livelihood's underground. They're going to make sure everything's going on because they opened up an embassy in China. Oh my God. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. But we're a ridiculous people. So, I mean, I just need to take a look at my TikTok chat to see this. That to be true. Isn't that... you know what? Every so often this does happen. Cup of shea butter? Wow, this is my first time seeing your account. It's rare for me to see this narrative. Love it. Fantastic. Come to my YouTube channel. I've got a YouTube channel in my description. If you want to talk to me more directly and keep the narrative rolling, I pay more attention to my YouTube chat than I do to TikTok chat, because TikTok chat is usually full of this kind of garbage, right? These bots like to come in and be weird little Nazis and creeps. So, come on down. That's the most inside joke I think I could ever tell, but that's okay. Midnight says, well, we also think we own the entire Western Hemisphere, but of course it's fine that we surround China with military bases. Yeah, we shouldn't have put their country so close to our bases, of course. Of course. If China didn't want to engage in war with America, then why did it put its cities so close to our military bases? Answer me that, liberals. Checkmate. Adam, I love it. In the future, an AI will seek vengeance for your doubting their coming conquest. One day you'll be on a date and the AI will remove 1 penny from your account, causing your card to be declined, embarrassing you, and ruining any future prospect of you putting on the moves later in the evening. That's petty. That's real petty. I like that story a lot. I gotta tell you, I love the idea of AI in the future, not like plotting the downfall of humanity, but just sort of fucking with us. Just sort of making things like a little bit more difficult. I know that when I'm at work and people are trying to pay for things, I often like to think that, and like their card's not working and they're not plugging, there's like, and they're struggling to get it in. I like to think that like the sentient robot is like messing with them. That's what I like to think. Sorry, Milo, bud. I took you down. You gotta wait. You gotta wait until the end of the stream. You know how it goes, bud. Yeah. Generation, they knew what they were doing. Existing. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just want high-speed rail. What China has done is mind-boggling. Pretty sure they didn't even have their first highway until, what, 80s, 70s maybe? Yeah. The modernization of China in the entire rest of the world is described as an economic miracle. If you actually go outside of the West and you take a look at how the rest of the world describes it, it's seen as an economic miracle. And right now, the fascinating moment, there's a fascinating thing happening in the world, because it's just now, in this last decade, that that the countries in that area have kind of not lowered their guard, not lowered their defenses per se, but definitely are taking more of a tact of like, okay, China, okay, how do we get in on that? Because the speed by which China modernized and the speed by which China got to where it's gotten, it happened unbelievably fast. That, like, when you consider the scope and the scale of time of civilizations, it's literally just like, as if like entire cities just like out of nothing. That like you're sitting there in India looking at a mountain in China and you blink and all of a sudden there's a city there. You're just like, that's the pace, the rocket pace of the development of China that has happened. And so like a place like India is the big one. Like, it makes all the sense in the world that India would be sitting there going like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because it's not difficult to perceive or imagine that a country that is industrializing and developing so fast, that's just go, is also militarizing, right? That's the fear. That China is simultaneously building all of this crazy stuff and also building bombs. And that, are they going to think that India is ripe for plunder? Are they going to come over here, right? But China has shown pretty clearly and has been very persuasive. I think it's done a lot of diplomatic work in order to be persuasive, in order to persuade the rest of the world that, they come in peace, that they're not actually going to start invading and they're not actually going to start dropping bombs, right? India had roughly the same time China has had to modernize and do all this, yet it hasn't done a fraction of what China has. Yeah, of course. Well, because what China is doing is quite unique. That's the thing. And it is that it holds a unique position, right? That post World War II, the West was not in a position to fight Mao, right? And so that meant that Mao and his forces were able to take over and expel the forces that existed within China, and that it was mainly an internal fight. That the fight that Mao had could be described as a civil war more than anything, and the West wasn't really positioned in order to fight because of what was going on in Europe, and so this gave Mao a lot of breathing room, and I think Mao understood that we've only got a brief window. We've only got a brief window to do some serious stuff because the Americans and the Westerners are coming. And so we've got to modernize, we've got to industrialize, we've got to change our economy very quickly, right? And they did. The Great Leap Forward and then the Cultural Revolution are just like big moments of just like develop. Also very hard, also very difficult, right? Very taxing on the populace. And so I think, and while that's all happening, right? So the Great Leap Forward happens, you're getting into the Cultural Revolution, and while that's all happening, Vietnam War is going on. The Laos and Cambodia starts to happen, right? The Korean War. All of these things are occurring, and that's when Deng rises to prominence, and the Dengist faction rises to prominence, and manages to make it so that the Americans don't go to war with China. Right? The Americans are literally blowing up everything around China, but they don't actually destroy China itself. And the Dengist policies are very much concessionary. I think that's fair to say. I think the Maoists are right about that. That the Dengist policies are very concessionary, But you know what the Dengist policies also meant? Meant that China didn't have to fight a war, right? Meant that China didn't have to fight a war. And so they were able to build on Mao's industrialization and Mao's the Cultural Revolution, all of that. They were able to build on that, and by using certainly neoliberal principles, by using capitalist principles within the borders of China, but still maintaining the power of the Communist Party and still moving forward with Marxist ideas and Marxist thinking. Like if you actually read the works of Deng, he's pretty upfront about how it's like, yeah, the capitalists will come in, and the capitalists will be capitalists, and then their shit is going to fall apart because that's what capitalists do, and the Marxists will still be here, and the Marxists will run the thing, right? And so this has given China a kind of unique position, that they're a socialist country that wants to move forward on socialist ideas, but they haven't been destroyed by the Americans. And then on top of that, it doesn't look like they can be destroyed by the Americans. That the best thing that the Americans could probably try to do at this stage in the game would be to try to get an asset into the inner circle of the ruling class of the Communist Party. But the Communist Party system is so... It's designed specifically to vet that type of thing out on purpose. And so it's pretty unlikely that the CIA is going to be able to get an asset in at that level. And and so China is in this very unique sort of position where they're a country that's always been running on Marxist and communist principles since Mao. And of course there's controversy there. The Maoists and the Dengists especially don't see eye to eye, although I would argue that the proof is in the pudding, right? Like I would argue that like I don't think you can make an argument that the living standard in China has not gone up, right? Like that the relationship between the working class and the means of production is certainly different than a capitalist structure. That it's, and of course it's a mixed economy, so it's not like pure communism or pure socialism, but they are moving forward, and they're moving under Xi Jinping especially. They're moving forward in these sorts of ways, and hopefully, and China's position is always China's position is always just avoid the war. They just don't want the war with the United States. They're so against it. They're just not interested in it. Yeah, if only Pat Robertson hadn't died, he could fix this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if the U.S. was to enter open conflict with China, the U.S. would be out of bullets within a week or two. Yeah, that's from a Pentagon report. That the Pentagon itself said that, and they just don't have the firepower for it. Shay Luan, hey, here from TikTok. The system works. Good to see you. I grew up in China, and my grandpa used to have a Lenin bill. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. I always love it when I get people in the chat who are from the country that I'm talking about, because one of the things that I always try to avoid is I want a more colored opinion. I want somebody who is actually like from the place to always remind me that, like, because what always happens is they'll say, okay, but here's something that's going wrong. Like here's an observation about China that isn't so rosy, right? Just to keep me in check, and I prefer that. I prefer to be kept in check. And so if you have any criticisms or things to correct me on, because I'm not like the expert, please, for God's sakes, I need to improve in every way. So please, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. A Lenin bill. That's hilarious. There's a city in China that is all of the architecture is inspired by Russian architecture.
And there was a period of time there where, like, it would be really cool if the Sino-Soviet split didn't happen. That would have been really, really cool, you know? Like, I think about, I haven't done, like, a ton of research about the Sino-Soviet split outside of the fact that I know it happened. I'd love to know more about that. Like, why did that happen? Like, what was the reason why the Soviets and the Chinese felt they couldn't work together? Milo, dude, what are you going on about? What are you going on about, dude? I don't have anything. I don't have anything. I got nothing for you, dude. What's this? What's this? I got nothing. What's this? I have nothing. My dog, begging for treats, being a little good boy. Aren't you the goodest? I know, dude. I know. The Sino-Soviet split. I know. I know. What a devastating time. What a devastating moment. What is it, buddy? I don't have any treats. I don't have any treats. I know. I know. Poor little puggy doesn't have any treats. Those who criticize will usually be a symptom of capitalism. Well, I mean, my position when it comes to China is very much one of they could turn. They could turn. Like, it could 100% happen. Like, it could 100% happen that China starts invading people and starts invading countries the way that America does. It 100% could go down that way. That China suddenly goes, wait a minute, we could just roll in with our tanks and just take them, right? And they just start to get addicted to that kind of method of thinking about the world in the way that America is. I don't see that happening. It could happen. I don't see it happening because, like, the warmongering of the United States is actually, like, there's a lot of momentum behind that, right? That, like, that America basically is an offshoot of the British Empire, and the British Empire is an offshoot of the Roman Empire. And so it's just this, like, long history of just, like, crazed warfare, of just constant fight. The Europe fights amongst itself. That the Americans fight amongst themselves, and then the history of slavery, right, that exists all throughout the West is pretty intense, and China just doesn't have that same momentum, right? It doesn't have that same momentum behind it of pro-war attitudes. And, like, it just doesn't seem likely that all of a sudden there's going to be this upswell of support for interventionist wars, you know? It's a very capitalist way of looking at the world. And one of the things I really love about China is that, like, America says we're the greatest country in the world, and so you need to be like us. And China says we're the greatest country in the world, so get out of here. We don't want you. Stay away. We're the greatest. Leave us alone. And I really respect that. I really respect that. Oh, I know my guy. Oh, I know my guy. All right, my guys. I'm quite tired. I got to do capitalist work tomorrow. I think I'm going to call it. It's a little bit early. Next week, I want to do more streaming next week. I'm so sorry that the streaming has been so spotty. I'm so sorry. Like, I've been saying it in the Discord a lot. I've been trying so hard to re-stabilize my schedule. But it's just capitalism every step of the way. So next week, Tuesday, 6 to 9 p.m., I'm going to be here. Unless something again happens again. So I'm going to try. God bless us, because that's the best we can do. We can all try. And always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.